What if the secret to feeding the world and saving our planet lies in a tiny ancient grain? For centuries, corn has been king, but a humble challenger is emerging. Discover why amaranth might just be the future of food and soil health, and how it stacks up against America's favorite crop. Corn has become so deeply embedded in modern agriculture that it's virtually impossible to go a day without consuming it in some form, whether as cornmeal, corn syrup, livestock feed, or even fuel ethanol. This single crop has shaped agricultural policy, rural economies, and dietary patterns across the globe. In the United States alone, corn occupies over 90 million acres of farmland, making it the most widely planted crop by a significant margin. This dominance didn't happen by accident, but rather through decades of government subsidies, industrial breeding programs, and the development of farming systems specifically designed around corn's requirements. However, our heavy reliance on this monoculture giant is revealing cracks that threaten long-term food security and environmental stability. Climate change is bringing more frequent droughts and unpredictable weather patterns that challenge corn's relatively narrow growing window and substantial water requirements. Meanwhile, the global population continues its upward trajectory toward 10 billion people by mid-century, putting unprecedented pressure on agricultural systems already stretched thin. The industrial corn model, with its dependence on synthetic fertilizers, pesticides, and fossil fuel inputs, is proving increasingly unsustainable, both economically and ecologically. We need alternatives that can thrive with fewer resources while actually improving rather than degrading the land. Amaranth carries a legacy that stretches back over 8,000 years to the ancient civilizations of Mesoamerica, where it served as a cornerstone crop for the Aztecs and other indigenous peoples. This pseudo-cereal, which produces tiny seeds packed with complete protein containing all essential amino acids, was so central to Aztec culture that it played roles in both daily sustenance and religious ceremonies. When Spanish conquistadors arrived, they specifically targeted amaranth cultivation as part of their effort to suppress indigenous culture, nearly driving this nutritional powerhouse to extinction. Today, amaranth is experiencing a remarkable renaissance as researchers and farmers rediscover its exceptional qualities in our search for climate-resilient food sources. The nutritional profile of amaranth reads like a superfood fantasy come true, delivering approximately 9 grams of protein per cooked cup, along with significant amounts of manganese, magnesium, phosphorus, and iron. Unlike corn, which lacks certain essential amino acids and requires complementary foods to provide complete nutrition, amaranth stands alone as a protein source comparable to milk or eggs. The grain contains squalene, a compound typically found in shark liver oil that shows promise for cardiovascular health, along with anti-inflammatory compounds that may help combat chronic diseases. Its leaves are equally impressive, functioning as a highly productive leafy green vegetable, similar to spinach but with even higher concentrations of vitamins A and C. Beyond nutrition, amaranth demonstrates remarkable adaptability to challenging growing conditions that would devastate conventional grain crops. This heat-loving plant actually thrives in temperatures that stress corn, continuing photosynthesis efficiently, even when the mercury climbs above 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Its drought tolerance stems from a C4 photosynthetic pathway that allows it to conserve water while maintaining growth, making it particularly valuable as climate change pushes traditional growing regions toward hotter, drier conditions. Amaranth cultivars have been successfully established everywhere from the high-altitude plains of the Andes to sea-level tropical regions, demonstrating a flexibility that few other grain crops can match. The environmental cost of industrial corn production has become impossible to ignore as we witness the steady degradation of once fertile farmland across the grain belt. Conventional corn farming relies on massive applications of synthetic nitrogen fertilizers that temporarily boost yields, but simultaneously destroy soil organic matter and kill beneficial microbial communities. These fertilizers contribute to dead zones in waterways as excess nitrogen runs off fields during rain events, creating hypoxic conditions that devastate aquatic ecosystems. The Gulf of Mexico dead zone, which can grow to the size of New Jersey during peak runoff season, is directly linked to corn and soybean production in the Mississippi River watershed. Corn's relatively shallow fibrous root system does little to break up compacted soil layers or bring up nutrients from depth, leaving farmers dependent on continuous chemical inputs to maintain productivity. The practice of planting corn in vast monocultures creates an ecological vacuum where pest insects and diseases flourish without natural predators, necessitating regular pesticide applications that further damage soil food webs. Tillage requirements for corn planting expose bare soil to erosion by wind and water, with some estimates suggesting that Iowa loses approximately 5 tons of topsoil per acre annually under conventional corn production. This represents an irreplaceable loss of the biological wealth that took thousands of years to accumulate. Amaranth presents a dramatically different relationship with the soil ecosystem, functioning more as a regenerative crop than an extractive one. Its deep taproot, which can penetrate 3 feet or more into the soil profile, acts as a biological drill that breaks up hardpan layers and creates channels for water infiltration and air movement. As these roots grow and eventually decompose, they leave behind organic matter at depth, building soil carbon reserves and creating habitat for beneficial microorganisms. Research has shown that amaranth requires approximately 50% less water than corn to produce equivalent caloric yields, making it a logical choice for water-stressed regions or gardens with limited irrigation capacity. The plant's vigorous growth habit provides another soil health advantage by creating a dense canopy that shades out weeds without requiring herbicides. This living mulch effect keeps soil temperatures moderate and reduces moisture loss through evaporation, while the eventual plant residues add substantial organic matter when incorporated back into the soil. Amaranth's minimal fertilizer requirements, often needing no more than a modest application of compost or aged manure, mean that gardeners can produce abundant yields without the chemical treadmill that characterizes corn production. The crop also supports greater biodiversity, attracting beneficial insects with its prolific flowers while providing habitat structure that encourages natural pest control. Growing amaranth in your home garden or small farm operation requires rethinking some assumptions you might carry from experiences with conventional grains, but the learning curve is surprisingly gentle. Start by selecting a site with full sun exposure and reasonable drainage, keeping in mind that amaranth tolerates poor soil far better than corn, but still appreciates decent fertility for optimal production. Direct seed after your last frost date, when soil temperatures have warmed to at least 60 degrees, spacing seeds, about 6 inches apart in rows 18 to 24 inches wide. The tiny seeds should be planted no more than a quarter-inch deep as they need light for germination, and can struggle to emerge through heavy soil cover. Early growth can seem frustratingly slow as young amaranth plants focus energy on establishing their root systems rather than visible top growth. This patience pays off around 6 to 8 weeks after germination, when plants suddenly accelerate their growth rate, sometimes adding several inches of height per week under good conditions. At this stage, minimal maintenance is required beyond occasional weeding during the first month and perhaps 1 or 2 deep waterings during extended dry spells. Unlike corn, which demands consistent moisture during pollination and grain fill, amaranth demonstrates remarkable resilience to temporary drought stress, making it ideal for low-maintenance growing systems. Harvesting amaranth seed requires different techniques than harvesting corn, but, the process is pretty straightforward once you understand the timing. Seed heads are ready when they begin to shed a few grains with gentle rubbing, typically 3 to 4 months after planting. Depending on variety and conditions, you should cut the entire seed head and hang it upside down in a dry, well-ventilated space over a tarp or large container, allowing seeds to drop naturally as they complete drying. Threshing can be accomplished by simply rubbing the dried flower heads between your hands or placing them in a pillowcase and gently beating against a hard surface. Winnowing away the chaff requires patience, but it can be done effectively by pouring seeds slowly in front of a fan or on a breezy day. The transformation toward more sustainable, resilient food systems won't happen through top-down mandates alone, but rather through millions of individual decisions by gardeners, farmers, and consumers who choose to experiment with alternatives. Starting an amaranth patch in your garden, even if it's just a 4 by 8 foot bed, contributes to preserving agricultural biodiversity, while giving you first-hand experience with a crop that might prove crucial in coming decades. Share your harvest with neighbors, save and trade seeds, and talk about your experiences growing this remarkable grain to help build the grassroots knowledge base that supports agricultural transition. Consider integrating amaranth into your cooking repertoire beyond simply replacing other grains, exploring its potential as both a seed crop and leafy vegetable. The young leaves make exceptional additions to salads or cooked greens, while mature seeds can be popped like miniature popcorn, cooked as porridge, ground into flour, or sprouted for added nutrition. Supporting businesses and research institutions working to develop improved amaranth varieties adapted to different regions helps accelerate the crop's reintegration into mainstream agriculture. Your garden experiments today are contributing valuable data points that collectively shape our agricultural future. Ready to grow the future of food while healing your soil? Subscribe to the Living Soil Lab for more insights into regenerative gardening practices that work with nature rather than against it, and share this guide with anyone curious about sustainable alternatives to industrial agriculture.